Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here on SABC3. And it's time for another edition of our Wednesday feature where we focus on the unconventional side of law. It's called So Now What? And we're joined once again by our expert lawyer and director at Legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern, everybody.
That's right. Now today we're going to be focusing on what your legal rights and recourses are should you have a less than favorable experience while eating out at your favorite restaurant. Now, we spend our hard-earned bucks on a fine dining experience. So let's jump into some food for thought for a smoother experience when it comes to going out and eating out.
Sure.
Eitan, where do I even start with this one? Do you even have any rights at all?
We're starting right from the top then.
Well, it's very, very cool to have you on the show today. There's a term called a misophobe.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us what that is?
I had to Google it to figure out what it is. I believe it's a germaphobe, someone that's scared of germs.
Exactly. Someone who wants to take their own cutlery, crockery, and straws into a restaurant because naturally we don't know if it's been cleaned correctly. Will something like that be allowed?
Okay. So this is obviously just going to be up to the restaurant's policy. So there's an old Roman maxim in our law that says the law doesn't concern itself with trivial things.
Okay.
And to be perfectly honest with you, someone wanting to take their cutlery into a restaurant is a bit trivial. So, you know, the laws are there to make rules that kind of keep our society safe.
Of course.
This is not one so there aren't specific laws around this, but if the restaurant doesn't mind, there's no problem with it. And really, in today's world, while, you know, there's a lot of plastic waste, it's probably a good idea to carry your own knife and fork, so you never have to use plastic, but it's not a legal issue.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. See, so if there's something wrong with my actual food order and I'm eating and it's definitely not what I ordered, it's not what it's meant to be like, and I send it back to the kitchen and it comes back and it's still wrong, do I have any sort of legal rights to refuse to pay for the food?
Sure, I guess so. So restaurants are bound by the Consumer Protection Act, like any consumer serving entity. So if you order something and it comes back wrong and you didn't get what you paid for, so you haven't been given what you asked for, then you have rights within the Consumer Protection Act to not pay. But you know, if you've eaten your food and you've tried it and you just didn't like it, then you obviously can't. But it's very important for us all to remember when going to restaurants that even if you don't like your food or anything like that, don't be rude to the waitresses and waiters.
Of course.
You know, because they're just working there as well. But sure, if you didn't get what you ordered, you shouldn't have to pay.
So I suppose you only have rights if the order is not what you asked for, not if it doesn't taste the way you wanted it to
Exactly, 100%,
I had an experience many, many years ago where I was having I had a chicken sandwich and it came with a little side salad.
Okay.
So I bit 2 or 3 bites into the one half of the chicken salad, and when I wanted to bite into the salad on the side, there was a lovely, yummy bug, a worm.
That's lovely
Just like,
stuff.
you know, like, hi.
Timon and Pumbaa.
The owner of the coffee shop actually said...
You didn't eat Timon, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't. It's a grub, you guys. The owner of the establishment actually said, I can't let you eat for free, so you're still going to pay for that.
Okay.
But I will give you a complimentary cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's quite a lot.
I'm sure in that case I could have been like...
Yes, in that case you probably could have, you know, claimed the Consumer Protection Act. They didn't give you what you wanted.
In fact, they gave me more than I asked for.
They gave you a little bit more than you asked for.
A little bit more protein than I wanted.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so let's say now I am at the restaurant and I injure myself while enjoying my eating experience at the restaurant. You know, these things can happen. Wet floors, or it's under construction and they forgot to put a sign on.
Yes.
Can we sue?
Okay.
And make some money? Or...
So in the law, you always, in all scenarios, you have this right to sue if something bad happens to you. So when you're going to a restaurant, you're in someone else's space, and the people have a duty to keep that space safe. So if they do something where they put something out, or they negligently or intentionally put something out that's going to harm one of their customers, then sure, if you have harm caused to you by someone else's negligence or intention, then definitely you always have the right to sue. Often restaurants are going to have indemnity forms to say you enter the space, you know, on your own free will, etc. So they'll probably try to wag that back in your face to say, look, there was a warning. There was a warning, but still, in the law, you can never contract out of gross negligence. So if they did something that was really silly and negligent, and there was an air conditioner that hadn't been fastened and it falls onto your table, then for sure you always have the right to sue.
Yeah, well, fabulous. We are talking to Eitan Stern. It's all about the laws around eating out. Where do you stand when it comes to those things? I want to talk about health codes after this, but Eitan's not going anywhere, and of course you can definitely stay up to date with all things law related with this incredible guy.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here at SABC3, and we're continuing our discussion with lawyer and director at legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern, about what your legal rights are when it comes to encountering mishaps when you're eating out at a restaurant. Very interesting.
Very interesting stuff we're learning from you, Eitan, this morning. So if a restaurant has ever had any action taken against it for violating health codes and practices, are they obligated to have this displayed somewhere in the restaurant to say, we've been guilty before?
There was a grub in our sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would think there would be a law around this, but it turns out there isn't any law around this. But it is a pretty good idea. So all restaurants need what's called a certificate of acceptability in order to open a restaurant. That means that they've gone through health and safety and they are like a fine establishment. There is the possibility that when a restaurant gets given their certificate that there's certain conditions and terms to it. So it does make sense that it could be that on that certificate it says, well, they've had issues in the past but they've corrected them. But that's not the case now. But if anyone thinks that's a good idea, what you can do is you can go and to your local, Minister of Parliament or your local, cabinet member and or parliamentarian, and go and suggest this. And if you get people behind it, you can even write a green paper, which is like a suggestion of law, and you can try to put that into the law. So, if anyone out there is passionate about that, they are able. That's how people change the law. But right now, there are no laws around that restaurants.
Disclosure of transgressions green paper. I can see that pulling through in Parliament.
Talking about disclosing, is a restaurant liable to tell you if there are common allergens that are found in your food? Let's say like traces of nuts, and you're allergic to nuts, or things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So again, one would think there would be laws around it, but not yet.
Okay.
This whole thing around allergens of nuts is relatively new and it's become popular quite recently, and so probably in time it will be there, but right now there isn't. But of course, if a restaurant causes you damage by not notifying you of something which could harm you, which they should have, then you might be able to claim against that restaurant. So so certainly restaurants, if more and more restaurants are starting to warn people about allergens in food. And if you are harmed by some food and you do feel like the restaurant should have notified you, then you could take action against them.
Also, just to cotton on to that, if you do have an allergy and you tell the waiter, listen, I have, my face is going to swell up if I have nuts. Are you sure there's no nuts or traces of anything? And they're like, nah, there's nothing, you're good. And I get...
then you definitely, then that restaurant has acted negligently. One might say they might have acted grossly negligent because you asked them and they still didn't warn you. And at that point, sure, you might have a claim against that restaurant. But it's going to have to be an allergy that, it's not just going to be something that makes you a little bit sick. Remember, the law doesn't consider itself, doesn't spend its time on small things. So it has to have actually caused you damage. So a little bit of a, irritable bowel syndrome or something, not going to be a big deal. But if it actually causes you real harm, then certainly then you could claim again that restaurant.
Interesting. And then going back to my story of the grub.
You're not letting that one go.
Media, because I think I heard like a couple of years ago that you're not allowed to go and make certain accusations about a restaurant or something like that. But let's say in today's time I do that, and I take a picture of the grub and I say, don't eat here.
Yes.
Would I get into trouble, or would I have a case foot to stand on?
Okay, so it's a bit of a complex answer in the sense of, look, you have freedom of speech. You're allowed to say what you want. The problem is with this new thing that we have of the court of social media. In my experience as a lawyer, there's often two or more sides to every story. So, the danger in being able to put something online is that you could really, really harm someone's business, and you might be doing it while you feel very justified. It might be a little bit unfair. So if you're going to do something like that, you have to make sure you are certain that it's correct. And if you are wrong and you overstep a mark, then you could be defaming that restaurant and causing them harm, and then that restaurant can claim against you. So the shoe will be on the proverbial other foot. So yes, it's possible, but you best be sure that you are certain that, and you want to cause harm to someone, because it can be very damaging.
Or just say they're now also serving worms as part of the menu.
Exactly.
Now part of the menu.
Very trendy.
Man, I hope that everyone at home has definitely taken a few notes today on when they have those mishaps at restaurants, how to deal with them from a legal perspective. Of course, help is always available, whether this is an ombudsman that looks after restaurants and then gives you information around all those codes of practice and conduct. It's about making sure that you know what your rights are when you step into a restaurant, and hopefully you've learned a thing or two. Thank you so much, Eitan Stern.
Only a pleasure.